All right, I want to go back to, you said the #1 challenge we have is terrorism.
Yes.
Okay, that America faces.
Yes.
President does not acknowledge we have a war on terrorism. President's saying it's a man-caused disaster. Do you think that the president has a pre-9/11 mentality?
Oh, that's a good question. There are some actions that are being taken today that would make someone assume that is what that mentality is. Instead, we need that 9/12 mentality where we build up our military defenses and we be willing and able to employ everything that we need to employ to keep our homeland safe and to support our allies who are there with us.
Well, like, for example, we pulled away missile defense for the Czech Republic and for Poland. Was that a mistake?
It was a mistake. In fact, missile defense was unfunded from a site up there in Alaska, which I think was quite unfortunate.
You mentioned in the book about how Jimmy Carter was weak as it related to the hostage crisis. We have a crisis now with an Iranian regime with a Holocaust denier as president that wants to annihilate Israel and wipe it off the face of the earth. How do we prevent Iran from getting nuclear weapons?
We have allies who are as concerned about Ahmadinejad's actions as we are. We need to be working closer with France and with Britain and start not just considering, but seriously taking steps towards the sanctions that we hear all about, but we never see any actions towards those. Cutting off the imports into Iraq of their refined petroleum products. They're reliant, 40 to 45% of their energy supply is reliant on those imports. We have some control over there. And some of the beneficial international monetary deals that Iraq benefits from, we can start implementing some sanctions there and start really shaking things up and telling Ahmadinejad nobody is going to stand for this.
How dangerous is it to negotiate with a Holocaust denier? How dangerous is it for the United States that our president thinks he can make progress with somebody like Ahmadinejad?
Well, you know, it's another one of those things where it's kind of an I told you so. When our campaign had brought out that Barack Obama had said that he would meet with some of these madmen without any preconditions. Now, I do believe that he has evolved from that position that he took as a candidate, and he realizes now you cannot make such a promise, not when you're dealing with these madmen who do want to destroy America and wipe an ally like Israel off the face of the earth.
Did you hear when the Brzezinski, who worked for Carter, who's now an advisor to Obama, you know, because we got a problem in Israel and the Middle East, you know, talking about shooting Israeli planes if they fly over Iraq to knock out Iranian nuclear facilities. If you were president, what would you do?
Well, there again, in working with our allies, there are other countries that we need to start putting pressure on, like Russia, and make sure that Russia is recognizing, too, that we're not going to put up with those threats of this Iranian regime that is so threatening and so controlling.
What do you think about, how do we, for example, deal with North Korea? How embarrassing is it to you when the president goes to China and has to beg them to continue to support the American economy by buying our treasury bonds? How do you deal with that area of the world?
Well, we have to start cleaning up our own house here in America, and not so much, well, it's going to be twofold, but we can't just look at China and blame them for some kind of trade imbalance. It's also our fault because we have spent so much money. We are so in debt as a country, $11-12 trillion now, that we are becoming more and more beholden to China. And, you know, China is taking advantage of the situation. So until America gets its house in order and we start diminishing the problem that we have of growing this debt, until our president and this Congress recognizes that digging this hole deeper and deeper makes absolutely no sense to the rest of us in America, then our relationship with China is going to be unbalanced. It's going to be nonsensical to many of us, and things have got to change.
Do you think Fort Hood was an act of terrorism?
I certainly do, and I think that there were massive warning flags that were missed all over the place, and I think that was quite unfortunate. That, to me, it was a fear of being politically incorrect to not, I'm going to use the word, profile this guy. Profiling in the sense of finding out what his radical beliefs were. The simple things like looking at his business card that had the secret code word for who it was that he actually, well, yeah, that too.
Try to contact Al-Qaeda.
Right. Now, because I use the word profile, I'm going to get clobbered tomorrow morning. The liberals, their heads are just going to be spinning, and they're going to say, she is radical, she is extreme. But I say, profiling in the context of doing whatever we can to save innocent American lives, I'm all for it then.
Yeah, you seem like you've really gotten shy and reserved since I last interviewed you, and you're really afraid to jump into the
That's why I'm just
the
never
controversial
in trouble.
world.
Right.
In every interview about the Kirk interview, I'm not going to ask you the same question. How would you answer those questions differently? The two that got the most play in the media.
I screwed up on, and I was annoyed, and my bad. I did a horrible job with that and let my annoyance just show so brightly. It was very unprofessional of me. I shouldn't have done that. She asked about what I read, and I read Newsmax and the Frontiersman and Wall Street Journal and everything online. I absorb the news via many, many sources.
You could have plugged Hannity.com, but we'll let that go.
Right.
But so you read Supreme Court cases. That was the
absorb the news via many, many sources.
You could have plugged Hannity.com, but we'll let that go.
Right.
But so you read Supreme Court cases. That was the other one that got a lot of play. Why did you not? How would you answer that question today? Is a better.
There were so many Supreme Court cases that affected my constituents in Alaska. An Exxon ruling had just come down, and in fact, I had recently had been interviewed that in national press, and I should have just answered that. Instead, again, my screw up. It was annoying circumstances, and I shouldn't have been so flippant about everything.
People either, it seems, if you look at the polls, love you or hate you. How would you reach out to maybe people that have a caricature image of Tina Fey or Saturday Night Live, or maybe really don't know you because of the campaign? Especially if you think about running for office in the future, was there a way that you would try and reach out to them?
They need to start by reading my book and not believing the tabloidization or the lamestream media that wants to portray me as something that I am not. But read the book, my own words, and then judge me by that. Judge me by my record. Judge me by my accomplishments as a mayor and a city manager and an oil regulator and a governor. And then they still hate me. Well, so be it.
At that point in time, now your dad said Sarah's not retreating. She's reloading.
That's right. That's right.
That's a pretty good line.
Yeah, that's good.
And you also said that you want to play a national role if people will have me.
Yes.
Well, it's obviously you have a pretty big fan base, so people will have you. How do you envision this role in the future? What role would you like to play? What roles potentially could you play?
Well, and not necessarily seeking a title to affect the positive change that I think our country needs. I would like to help candidates to get elected to cast those votes that are needed to implement good change and get our economy back on the right track. I want to help those worthy causes like special needs, making sure that our world is a more welcoming world for the most special ones. And there are a lot of causes out there that I want to help with. Don't know if necessarily that means running for a higher office, but my life is in God's hands, and I'm seeking that path that He would have me on.
You're not thinking about it now, but you're not ruling it out now.
Not ruling it out.
Okay. Now, when you resigned as governor, a lot of people were saying, and you had told a story about a conversation you had with your older son about that issue, which I thought was interesting in the book. All right, so let's say 2012 and you decide to run. And the question comes up, Governor, what assurances you won't resign if investigations begin, you think you're a lame duck? How would you answer that question in 2012? The
decision to hand the reins over to my lieutenant governor was all about what was doing right for the constituents in the state of Alaska, not prohibiting progress based on the opposition researchers trying to put me on a path towards personal destruction. So doing the right thing for my state, and the decision was the right decision for Alaska.
Right.
I'm not a quitter, and I do love the way that my dad put that, not retreating, but reloading in order to get out there and fight for what is right for our country, in order to help provide some common sense conservative solutions.
So we're going to hear a lot from you.
You're going to hear a lot from me. So, the haters are going to have a whole lot of material. Tina Fey, she may have a whole lot of material coming up, but our message is strong, our message is truth, and our message, my message, I think is a voice for that common sense, everyday, hardworking American who expects not much out of their government except for it to be on their side.
You talk about the thumping, and you talk about rules for radicals,
yes.
And you talk about Rahm and the Democrats, and you got the Chicago treatment. Do you think they were responsible for a lot of the investigations that ensued, which you know, became very troublesome and expensive for you, which led to the resignation?
Well, absolutely, but it wasn't just me. It was the burden put on the state administration, the millions of dollars, the thousands of hours that my staff had to spend just to respond to the frivolous things that were thrown our way. And that was all quite unfortunate, but Alaska is doing very well under Lieutenant Governor, now Governor Sean Parnell. He's got the same agenda that I have. Now we're minus all those distractions, and our state is moving forward on energy projects that will create a more secure environment for our nation. He's doing the right thing.
In that case, so you're happy. All right, so as we move forward, you really have no idea where you're going to be in 4 years.
I do not know. I wish that I could predict and prepare for what's going to happen in 4 years, but I'm very happy where I am now, happy with the book, happy with those receiving the truth and the message that that I'm sending, very happy with where my family is now. They're healthy, they're joyful, and everybody's doing just fine.
Governor.